Hi guys, let's continue with part 4 of the 39th UPSC 2020 Prelims test series from Vision IAS. So the 76th question is, which of the following is or are correct with reference to the Pattachitra paintings? Number 1, it is one of the oldest and most popular art forms of Orissa. Number 2, the painting is done on a cloth coated with soft clay. Number 3, it involves rich use of artificial color with great flexibility in use of colors and patterns. So select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B, that is 1 and 2 only. So the correct answer is 1 and 2 only. Pattachitra style of painting is one of the oldest and most popular art forms of Orissa. The name Pattachitra has evolved from the Sanskrit words Patta meaning canvas and Chitra meaning picture. Pattachitra is thus a painting done on canvas and is manifested by rich, colorful application, creative motifs and designs, and portrayal of simple themes, mostly mythological in depiction. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Making the patta is the first thing that comes in the agenda, and the painters, also called chitrakars, go about their work in preparing a tamarind paste, which is made by soaking tamarind seeds in water for 3 days. The seeds are later pounded with a crusher mixed with water and heated in an earthen pot to turn it to a paste, which is called Niryaskalpa. The paste is then used to hold 2 pieces of cloth together with it and coated with a powder of soft clay stone a couple of times till it becomes firm. Soon as the cloth becomes dry, the final touch of polishing it with a rough stone and then a smooth stone or wood is given until the surface becomes smooth and leathery and is all ready as a canvas to be painted on. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Preparing the paints is perhaps the most important part of the creation of Pattachitra. Engaging the craftsmanship of the chitrakars is using naturally available raw materials to bring about indigenous paints. The gum of the kaitha tree is the chief ingredient and is used as a base for making different pigments, on which diverse raw materials are mixed for diverse colors. Powdered conch shells, for instance, are used for making a white pigment, while lamp soot is used for a black pigment. The root of the kea plant is usually used for making the common brush, while mouse hair is used on the requirement of finer brushes to be attached to wooden handles. The creation of the Pattachitra paintings is a disciplined art form, and the Chitrakars maintain rigidity in their use of colors and patterns, restricting the colors to a single tone. Hence, statement 3 is not correct. Now let's come to question number 77. The term deep sea, DEEP, CEE, seen recently in news is related to number A, exploration of polymetallic nodules in the deep seas. Number B, the use of artificial intelligence technology to identify galaxy clusters. Number C, exploration of petroleum reserves in the South China Sea. Number D, removal of plastic debris from the oceans. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. That is use of artificial intelligence technology to identify galaxy clusters. Recently, researchers have developed an artificial intelligence powered tool that has been trained to look at color images and identify galaxy clusters quickly. Hence, option B is the correct answer. Now let's learn about deep sea, that is deep learning for galaxy cluster extraction and evaluation. Deep sea builds on Abel's approach for identifying galaxy clusters. It replaces the astronomer with an artificial intelligence model. Deep sea model is based on neural networks. These neural networks are designed to mimic the way a human brain learns to recognize objects by activating specific neurons when visualizing distinctive patterns and colors. Artificial intelligence models are repeatedly trained until the algorithm is able to learn to associate objects on its own. Now let's come to galaxy clusters. They are some of the most massive structures in the cosmos, consisting of hundreds of galaxies spread in not so vast area. Usually it is limited to a few million light years across. At their core, these clusters have big population of elliptical yet massive galaxies. These clusters are believed to be formed stars a long time ago but not making stars anymore. Now let's come to question number 78. Consider the following statements. Number 1, the stratosphere has a higher concentration of greenhouse gases than the troposphere. Number 2, unlike the troposphere, the stratosphere experiences higher temperatures with increasing altitude. Which of the statements given above is or are not correct? So we have to find the not correct one. So the answer is A, that is one only. So the statement 1 is incorrect. Temperatures at the Earth's surface have increased by between 0. 0.2 and 0.4 degrees Celsius in the past 30 years. The warming trend is attributed to higher concentrations of greenhouse gases, methane, CFCs, and others, which warm both the Earth's surface and lower atmosphere by holding heat in. Most of the atmospheric greenhouse gases are concentrated in the upper troposphere. The lower stratosphere, approximately between 6 and 30 miles above the Earth's surface, is mostly above the layer of greenhouse gases that trap heat. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. Temperatures decrease with altitude in the troposphere at a rate of about 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer, depending on the weather, while in stratosphere temperature increase with altitude. It is because the ozone layer absorbs the greater part of the solar ultraviolet radiation. The ozone layer is an absorbing agent that protects life on Earth. Hence, statement 2 is correct. So, the incorrect statement is 1 only. Now let's come to question number 79. Which of the following techniques can be applied to recharge the groundwater? Number 1, check dams. Number 2, percolation tanks. Number 3, substrata dykes. Number 4, gully plugs. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. That is 1, 2, 3 and 4. They are all correct. Getting back the required level of groundwater is called recharging of groundwater. For these, the water accumulated on the Earth's surface is facilitated to enter into the Earth and to raise the level of groundwater. Some technologies applied for the recharging of groundwater are construction of check dams. A permanent or temporary wall constructed against the flow of water current in order to check it against going away and also in order to raise the existing water level is called as a check dam. Temporary check dams are constructed by using different types of locally available materials like wood, pebbles, rock pieces, or wire nets. Next is construction of irrigation ponds. These are artificially constructed ponds in the area of watersheds for the collection of water for irrigation. This practice is very much popular in South India. Next is construction of percolation ponds or percolation pits. These are artificially constructed ponds in low-lying areas to collect the rainwater. Inverted tube wells and dug wells are constructed in the bottoms of ponds so as to allow easy percolation of water inside the ground and to recharge the groundwater level. Next is construction of tunnels. These are deep structures in the ground dug in order to collect the rainwater in them. The rainwater so collected in tunnels recharges the groundwater table. Next we have substrata dykes or subsurface dams. These are long, thick walls built underground in the bed of some streams to stop flooding onto a low area of land or checking the subsurface flow of water. Next we have the inverted tube wells. These are deep bore wells through which the rainwater is allowed to enter into the earth to recharge the groundwater. Tube wells are used to extract the groundwater. Next we have gully plugs. The deep incision that cuts into the bedrock due to surface runoff of water is called a gully. Gullies are formed in steep areas due to the erosion of soil by rainwater. Gully plugs are stones, sandbags, or wood logs that are used as obstructions against the flow of water through gullies. Hence, option D is the correct answer. Now let's come to question number 80. With reference to the privatization of Indian Railways, consider the following statements. Number 1. The FDI policy permits 100% FDI in the railways infrastructure sector. Number 2. Recently, Tejas Express became the first passenger train to be run by an entity other than Indian Railways. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The correct answer is C. That is both 1 and 2. So, both the statements are correct. Recently, the Indian Railways has initiated the process to allow private firms to operate passenger trains on its network by inviting entities to participate on 109 origin-destination routes through 151 new trains. In return, private operators will have to pay fixed haulage charges, energy charges on the basis of actual consumption, and a share of their gross revenue to the railways. The FDI policy permits 100% FDI in railways infrastructure sector. FDI is permitted in the construction, operation and maintenance of the railway transport sector, suburban corridor projects through PPP model, high-speed train projects, dedicated freight lines, rolling stock including train sets, and locomotives or coaches manufacturing and maintenance facilities. railway electrification, signaling systems, freight terminals, and passenger terminals. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation Limited, IRCTC, a subsidiary of Indian Railways, has launched brand new Tejas Express passenger trains, an initiative that will help the state-run company generate additional revenue and plan for more such offerings. This is the first time that IRCTC, which manages the bookings and catering services on Indian Railways' 120,000 kilometer network, will be managing train services on its own. IRCTC will have the right to advertise on these trains to earn non-fare revenues. The new Tejas trains will be the first to be run by an entity other than the national transporter. Hence, statement 2 is correct. The Railway Board had constituted a committee for mobilization of resources for major railway projects and restructuring of Railway Ministry and Railway Board under the chair of Mr. Vivek Debroy. The committee submitted its report in June 2015. The committee recommended large-scale private participation. Now let's come to question number 81. Consider the following statements. Statement number 1. The subject, regulation and development of interstate rivers is included in the concurrent list under Schedule 7 of the Constitution. Statement 2. Parliament by law can bar the Supreme Court from exercising jurisdiction in respect of disputes arising from interstate river water sharing. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is B. That is 2 only. So only statement 2 is correct. Specific constitutional provisions related to water. Number 1, we have Union List, regulation and development of interstate rivers and river valleys. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. State list, water, that is to say water supplies, irrigation and canals, drainage and embankments, water storage and water power subject to the provision of Union List. Article 262 of the Constitution deals with adjudication of water disputes. The provisions in this regard are: Number 1. Article 262 Clause 1. Parliament may by law provide for the adjudication of any dispute or complaint with respect to the use, distribution or control of the waters of or in any interstate river or river valley. Number 2. Article 262 Clause 2. Parliament may by law provide that neither the Supreme Court nor any other court shall exercise jurisdiction in respect of any such dispute. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Under Article 262, the Interstate River Water Disputes Act 1956 was enacted by the Parliament. Till date, 9 Interstate River Water Disputes Tribunal were constituted. Recently, the Interstate River Water Disputes Amendment Bill 2019 was passed by Lok Sabha. Some of the important provisions are: Number 1. Disputes Resolution Committee. Under the bill, when a state puts in a request regarding any water dispute, the central government will set up a Dispute Resolution Committee, that is DRC, to resolve the dispute amicably. Number 2. Tribunal. The central government will set up an interstate river water disputes tribunal for the adjudication of water disputes. Number 3. Time frames. Under the Act, the tribunal must give its decision within 3 years, which may be extended by 2 years. Number 4. The decision of the tribunal has the same force as that of an order of the Supreme Court. Number 5. Data bank. Under the Act, the central government maintains a data bank and information system at the national level for each river basin. Now let's come to question number 82. Sathi, a recent initiative of the Government of India, is aimed at number A. Setting up a shared science and technology infrastructure facility which can be readily accessible to academia and R&D labs. Number B. Providing banking to unauthorized providing banking to unorganized sector by linking self-help groups and banks through online platform. Number C. Rehabilitating the homeless and destitute persons and provide them with suitable source of livelihood. Number D. Supporting the district administration in sustainable development of rural NGOs and voluntary organizations. So the correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A, that is setting up a shared science and technology infrastructure facility which can be readily assessed by academia and R&D labs. In order to address the need for building professionally managed and shared science and technology infrastructure in the country, the Department of Science and Technology has launched a unique scheme called Sophisticated Analytical and Technical Help Institutes, that is SATI. It aims to build infrastructure which is readily accessible to academia, startups, manufacturing, industry, and R&D labs. Hence, option A is the correct answer. These centers are expected to house major analytical instruments to provide common services of high-end analytical testing, thus avoiding duplication and reduced dependency on foreign sources. These would be operated with a transparent, open access policy. DST has already set up 3 such centers in the country, one each at IIT Kharagpur, IIT Delhi, and Banaras Hindu University. So the last one is Banaras Hindu University at a cost of rupees 125 crore each. Now let's come to question number 83. Recently, India has agreed to participate in Kavkaz 2020, a strategic command post exercise. It is hosted by number A, Russia, number B, Singapore, number C, Japan, number D, China. So the correct answer is A, that is Russia. In a resumption of bilateral and multilateral military exercises which were deferred due to coronavirus, India will take part in the Russian Kavkaz 2020 Strategic Command Post exercise. Hence, option A is the correct answer. The invitees for the exercise also include China and Pakistan, apart from other member states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that is SCO. The invitation for participation to Kavkaz 2020, also referred to as Caucasus 2020, has been extended to at least 18 countries including China, Iran, Pakistan and Turkey, apart from other Central Asian republics, part of the SCO. In June 2020, India and Chinese military contingents marched at the Victory Day parade at Red Square in Moscow to mark the 75th anniversary of World War II. Now let's come to question number 84. With reference to the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research Institution, consider the following statements. Number 1. It is an autonomous research and development institution under the Ministry of Science and Technology. Number 2. It is responsible for maintenance of the Indian stations in Antarctica and Arctic. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is B. That is 2 only. Only statement 2 is correct. The National Center for Polar and Ocean Research NCPOR, formerly known as the National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research, that is NCAOR, is an Indian research and development institution situated in Vasco da Gama, which is in Goa. NCPOR was established as an autonomous research and development institution of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, formerly Department of Ocean Development, Government of India on the 25th May 1998. Hence statement 1 is not correct. It is responsible for administering the Indian Antarctic Program and maintains the Indian government's Antarctic research stations, that is Bharati and Maitri, and also operating the Himadri and INDARC Arctic research stations in Svalbard, Norway. Hence statement 2 is correct. The NCPOR operates in different fields or tasks. The first one is storing ice core samples from Antarctica and the Himalayas. Number 2, managing the Oceanic Research Vessel ORV Sagar Kanya, the flagship of India's fleet of oceanographic study vessels. This ship has contributed significantly to India's study of the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the Indian Ocean. Now let's come to question number 85. The temple was built in the reign of Narasimha Varman II, who reigned from 700 to 728 CE. It houses 3 shrines, 2 dedicated to Shiva and 1 to Vishnu, who is known as Ananta Shayana. So it houses 2 shrines, it houses 3 shrines, 2 dedicated to Shiva and 1 to Vishnu, who is shown as Ananta Shayana. Which of the following temples is described in the above passage? Number A, Shore Temple at Mahabalipuram. Number B, Raja Rajeshwara Temple at Thanjavur. Number C, Kailashnath Temple at Ellora. Number D, Virupaksha Temple at Patadakal. Now the correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A, that is Shore Temple at Mahabalipuram. The Shore Temple at Mahabalipuram was built in the reign of Narasimhavarman II, also known as Raja Simha, who reigned from 700 to 728 CE. It houses 3 shrines, 2 to Shiva, 1 facing east and the other west, and a middle one to Vishnu, who is shown as Ananta Shayana. This is unusual because temples generally have a single main shrine and not three areas of worship. This shows that it was probably not originally conceived like this, and different shrines may have been added at different times, modified perhaps with the change of patrons. Hence, option A is the correct answer. In the compound, there is evidence of a water tank and early example of a gopuram and several other images. Sculptures of the bull, Nandi, Shiva's mount line the temple walls, and these, along with the carvings on the temple's lower walls, have suffered severe disfiguration due to erosion by salt water laden air over the centuries. Brihadishvara Temple, also called Raja Rajeshwaram, is a temple dedicated to Shiva located in south bank of Kaveri River in Thanjavur, Tamil Nadu, built by Tamil king Raja Raja Chola I between 1003 and 1010 AD. The temple is a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site known as the Great Living Chola Temples, along with the Chola Dynasty era Gangaikonda Cholapuram Temple and Airavateshvara Temple. The Kailashanatha Temple. Okay, the next one is Kailashanatha Temple is the largest of the rock-cut Hindu temples at the Ellora Caves, Maharashtra. Most of the excavation of the temple is generally attributed to the 8th century Rashtrakuta king Krishna I, with some elements completed later. Virupaksha Temple is located in Hampi in the Ballari district of Karnataka in India. It is part of the group of monuments at Hampi designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The temple is dedicated to Lord Virupaksha, a form of Shiva. The temple was built by Lakan Kandesha, a Nayaka, that is chieftain, under the ruler Devaraya II of Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, so now let's come to question number 86. The external commercial borrowings, that is ECB, proceeds cannot be utilized for which of the following purposes? Number 1, investment in the capital market. Number 2, repayment of rupee loans. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So both 1 and 2 are correct. External commercial borrowings are commercial loans raised by eligible resident entities from recognized non-resident entities and should conform to parameters such as minimum maturity, permitted and non-permitted end uses, maximum all-in cost ceiling, etc. All entities eligible to receive FDI are also eligible to raise ECBs. Further, the following entities are also eligible to raise ECBs. Number 1, Board Trust. Number 2, Units in SEZ. Number 3, SIDB. Number 4, Exim Bank. And number 5, registered entities engaged in microfinance activities like registered not-for-profit companies, registered societies, or trust or cooperatives. The negative list for which the ECB proceeds cannot be utilized would include the following. Number 1, real estate activities. However, this would not include construction or development of industrial parks or integrated township or SEZ. purchase or long-term leasing of industrial land as part of new project or modernization of expansion of existing units or any activity under infrastructure sector definition. Number 2, investment in the capital market. Number 3, equity investment. Number 4, working capital purposes except from foreign equity holder. Number 5, general corporate purposes except from foreign equity holder. Number 6, repayment of rupee loans except from foreign equity holder. Number 7, on lending to to entities. So on lending to entities for the above activities. Hence, option C is the correct answer. So, both the statements 1 and 2 are correct. Now, let's come to question number 87. With reference to recently observed penumbral lunar eclipse, consider the following statements. Number 1, it is unique in the sense that it is visible from every part of the world. Number 2, it occurs only once a year. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is D. That is neither 1 nor 2. So both the statements are incorrect. Like any other opaque objects illuminated by a light source, the moon and the earth cast shadows into space as they block the sunlight that hits them. Each shadow has 3 different areas: the umbra, the penumbra, and the antumbra. The first one, the penumbra, is the lighter outer part of a shadow. The moon's penumbra causes partial solar eclipse, and the earth's penumbra is involved in penumbral lunar eclipses. Number 2, umbra. It is the shadow's dark center portion. Then the last one we have antumbra. It is the lighter part of the shadow that begins where the umbra ends. When the earth enters the moon's shadow, we see a solar eclipse. When the moon travels through the earth's shadow, a lunar eclipse occurs. The type of eclipse depends on the type of shadow that is involved. A penumbral lunar eclipse occurs when Earth's outer shadow falls on the moon's face. It is easy to miss because most of the moon is illuminated by sunlight. During a penumbral lunar eclipse, the moon does not disappear partially or fully. It just becomes a bit faint, which means that humans might not be able to differentiate between the full moon and the eclipsed moon. It recently occurred on July 5th. The eclipse was only visible from South or West Europe, much of Africa, much of North America, South America, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Antarctica. It was not visible from India this time, as it will be daytime during the celestial event in the country. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. It can occur more than once in a year. The next penumbral lunar eclipse will take place between November 29 to November 30. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. So, both the statements are not correct. Now, let's come to question number 88. Consider the following statements with respect to super Earth planet. Number 1, super Earth planets are located in Goldilocks zones only. Number 2, our solar system does not have any known super Earths. Which of the statements given above are correct? So the correct answer is B. That is 2 only. So the correct answer is statement 2. Our solar system does not have any known super Earths. A super-Earth is an extrasolar planet with a mass higher than Earth's but substantially below those of the solar system's ice giants, like Uranus and Neptune, which are 14.5 and 17 times Earth's respectively. These planets can be up to 10 times more massive than Earth. If the super Earth is in the habitable zone of its star and has a life friendly atmosphere, it could host life, but that is not a guarantee. Also called the habitable zone or life zone, the Goldilocks region is an area of space in which a planet is just the right distance from its home star so that its surface is neither too hot nor too cold. The term super Earth refers only to the mass of the planet and so does not imply anything about the surface conditions or habitability. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. There are no known super Earths in our solar system. They are all in extrasolar planetary systems. With telescope technology of today, most super Earths have been found near M class red dwarf stars, which is smaller than the Sun, or G class stars, which is similar to our Sun. Stars that are bigger and shine brighter than the Sun would simply wash super Earths out and make their tiny gravitational tugs hard to detect and the transit signals too small. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Now let's come to next question. Question number 89. In the context of plea bargaining in India, consider the following statements. Number 1. Under it, a person charged with a criminal offense negotiates for a lesser punishment than what is provided in law by pleading guilty to a less serious offense. Number 2. Under Indian law, the process of plea bargaining can be initiated only by the prosecutor. Number C. Only someone who has been charge sheeted for an offense involving a prison term above 7 years, so involving a prison term above 7 years, can make use of the provisions of plea bargaining. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is A, that is one only. So the statement 1 is correct. The statement 1 is correct. Plea bargaining refers to a person charged with a criminal offense negotiating with the prosecution for a lesser punishment than what is provided in law by pleading guilty to a less serious offense. It is common in the United States and has been a successful method of avoiding protracted and complicated trials. As a result, conviction rates are significantly high there. It primarily involves pre-trial negotiations between the accused and the prosecutor. It may involve bargaining on the charge or in the quantum of sentence. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Plea bargaining was introduced in 2006 as part of a set of amendments to the CRPC as Chapter 21A, containing sections 265A to 265L. The Indian Code makes plea bargaining a process that can be initiated only by the accused. Further, the accused will have to apply to the court for invoking the benefit of bargaining. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. Cases for which the practice is allowed are limited. Only someone who has been charge sheeted for an offense that does not attract the death sentence, life sentence, or a prison term above 7 years can make use of the scheme under Chapter 21A. Hence, Statement 3 is not correct. It is also applicable to private complaints of which a criminal court has taken cognizance. Other categories of cases that cannot be disposed of through plea bargaining are those that involve offences affecting the socio-economic conditions of the country or committed against a woman or a child below the age of 14. Now let's come to question number 90. Which of the following are benefits or implications of granting infrastructure status to a sector or industry? Statement 1. Facilitate the availability of debt on easier terms. Number 2. Access to longer tenure funds from pension funds. Number 3. Simplify the approval process. Number 4. Access to external commercial borrowings. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. That is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So all of them are correct. Once an industry is accorded infrastructure status, the sector is entitled to a number of benefits and concessions. This grant of status enables the industry to raise money from insurance companies, pension funds, and international lenders with longer tenure and on easier terms. Infrastructure status gives industries access to cheaper foreign currency funding through the external commercial borrowing route. Falling under the infrastructure category helps the sector get credit at competitive rates and on a long-term basis with enhanced limits. Furthermore, the logistics sector will also be eligible to borrow from the India Infrastructure Financing Company, that is IIFCL. According to infrastructure status, it will further simplify the approval process for affordable projects, create clear guidelines, and increase transparency in the segment. For example, logistics has been accorded infrastructure status in 2017, facilitating the availability of debt on easier terms and access to external commercial borrowings, longer tenure funds from insurance companies and pension funds, as well as investment support. Hence, all the options are correct. Now let's come to question number 91. Which of the following indicators are included in the Global Gender Gap Index? Number 1, social empowerment. Number 2, educational attainment. Number 3, health and survival. Number 4, political empowerment. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B, that is 2, 3, 4. Recently, India has been ranked 112th among 153 countries in the annual Global Gender Gap Index for 2020 published by the World Economic Forum, that is WEF. Let's come to Gender Gap Report. The WEF, that is World Economic Forum, published its first Gender Gap Index in 2006. The Global Gender Gap Index benchmarks 153 countries on their progress towards gender parity in 4 dimensions: Number 1, economic participation. Number 2, opportunity educational attainment. Number 3, health and survival. Number 4, political empowerment. Hence, option B is the correct answer. The report aims to serve as a compass to track progress on relative gaps between women and men on health, education, economy, and politics. It measures women's disadvantage compared to men and is not a measure of equality of the gender gap. Iceland, Norway, and Finland occupy the top 3 spots in the report. India's position in the index. India has slipped 4 places in the report to 112 behind neighbors China, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh. It is due to rising disparity in terms of women's health and participation in the economy. The country ranked 98th in WEF's first report in 2006. Since then, it has fallen due to poor performance in 3 out of 4 indicators. India is also ranked in the bottom 5 in terms of women's health and survival and economic participation. The report showed that economic opportunities for women are extremely limited in India, that is 35.4%. India also ranked among countries with very low women representation on company boards. The report highlighted abnormally low sex ratios at birth in India, 91 girls for every 100 boys. On health and survival, 4 large countries like Pakistan, India, Vietnam, and China fare badly with millions of women not getting the same access to health as men. India is the only country among the 153 countries studied where the economic gender gap is higher than the political one. On a positive note, India has closed 2/3 of its overall gender gap. Now let's come to question number 92. Generation Unlimited program recently in news is related to number A, sustainable use of natural resources, number B, engaging the younger age group in learning, self-employment or training, number C, integrated courses in artificial intelligence, big data and machine learning, number D, support of geriatric population and use their knowledge and experience. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. Engaging the younger age group in learning, self-employment, or training. Recently, the United Nations Children's Fund, that is UNICEF, launched the YUWAAH, also known as Generation Unlimited program in India on November 1, 2019. According to UNICEF, Generation Unlimited programmer called YUWA in India is a multi-stakeholder alliance which aims to facilitate youth to gain relevant skills for productive lives and the future of work. It aims to ensure that every young person aged 10 to 24 is in some form of learning, school, self-employment, training, or age-appropriate employment by 2030. Hence, option B is the correct answer. The target age group of YUVA includes adolescent girls and boys. Its key mission is to promote access to foundational, transferable, and 21st century skills for youth inside and outside formal education systems, which includes defining foundational skills, life skills, and flexible learning, and identifying and scaling impactful delivery models. UA intends to create platforms to guide youth to market opportunities. career guidance, mentorship, internships, apprenticeships, and facilitate integration of career guidance in school education. Now let's come to question number 93. Consider the following statements. Number 1. Emissions from thermal power plants and industries are the single largest source of carbon dioxide (SO2) emissions in India. Number 2. Flue gas desulfurization (FGD) system is used to reduce sulfur dioxide (SO2) emissions from thermal power plants. Which of these statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So both the statements are correct. India is the largest emitter of sulfur dioxide (SO2) in the world, contributing more than 15% of global anthropogenic emissions, according to a new report by Greenpeace. The primary reason for India's high emission output is the expansion of coal-based electricity generation over the past decade, the report added. 5 of the top 10 SO2 emission hotspots from coal or power generation industry across the world are in India. SO2 emissions are a significant contributor to air pollution. Its direct exposure and exposure to particulate matter PM2.5 produced when SO2 reacts with other air pollutants to form sulfate particles both affect human health. The greatest source of SO2 in the atmosphere is the burning of fossil fuels in power plants and other industrial facilities. Other sources include industrial processes such as extracting metal from ore, natural sources such as volcanoes and locomotives, ships and other vehicles, and heavy equipment that burn fuel with high sulfur content. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Flue gas desulfurization (FGD) is a set of technologies used to remove sulfur dioxide from exhaust flue gases of fossil fuel power plants, as well as from the emissions of other sulfur oxide emitting processes. Hence, statement 2 is correct. The Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change had for the first time introduced SO2 emissions limits for coal-fired power plants in December 2015. But the Supreme Court order changed the deadline for installation of FGD technology in power plants from 2017 to December 2019 in Delhi NCR until 2022 for other parts of the country. Recently, the Supreme Court rejected the request of the Association of Power Producers, that is APP, to extend the 2022 deadline for meeting pollution norms by 2 years. Now let's come to next question, that is question number 94. Consider the following statements regarding Eco-Mark scheme. Number 1. It is a voluntary scheme for the labeling of environment-friendly products. Number 2. It is administered by the Bureau of Indian Standards. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C. That is both 1 and 2 are correct. The Government of India has instituted a voluntary scheme for labeling of environment-friendly products to be known as Eco-Mark in 1991. Hence, statement 1 is correct. The scheme is being administered by the Bureau of Indian Standards. Hence, statement 2 is correct. So far, the following product categories have been identified for coverage under this scheme. We have soaps and detergents, paints, paper, plastics, cosmetics, textiles, batteries, wood substitutes, propellants and aerosols, food items like edible oils including banaspati, tea, coffee. We have electrical and electronics goods. We have packing or packaging materials. We have lubricating or specialty oils. We have drugs, foods, preservatives and additives, pesticides, leathers also. The scheme is being operated on a national basis and provides certification and labeling for household and other consumer products which meet certain environmental criteria along with quality requirements prescribed in relevant Indian standards for the product. Now let's come to question number 95. Which of the following important multilateral environmental agreements and global environmental conventions have been ratified by India? Number 1, Convention on Biological Diversity. Number 2, Minamata Convention on Mercury. Number 3, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Number 4, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is D. That is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So all of them are correct. Multilateral environmental agreements guide global, regional, and national action on environmental issues and are a result of multilateral processes which make them key elements of environmental, legal, and governance regimes. Scholars and practitioners also refer to them as soft laws to indicate the nature of the instruments and compliance issues related to them. Some of the important multilateral environmental agreements ratified by India are: the first one is Convention on Biological Diversity, that is CBD. It is the international legal instrument for the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. CBD has been ratified by 196 nations. India ratified the Convention on Biological Diversity in February 1994. So the next multilateral environmental agreements ratified by India will be United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, that is UNCCD. United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification (UNCCD) is the sole legally binding international agreement linking environment and development to sustainable land management. The convention addresses specifically the arid, semi-arid and dry subhumid areas known as the drylands, where some of the most vulnerable ecosystems and peoples can be found. India ratified the UNCCD Convention on 17 December 1996. Next is the National Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, also known as Seed Treaty, as it is a comprehensive international agreement for ensuring food security through the conservation, exchange, and sustainable use of the world's plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. India is a signatory to the treaty. Other important environmental agreements and global environmental conventions ratified by India include: we have Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, that is CITES, CITES. Next, we have the Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network, that is TRAFFIC, TRAFFIC. Next, we have Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. Next is Convention on Wetlands, popularly known as the Ramsar Convention. Next, we have Minamata Convention on Mercury. Next, we have United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC. Next is Montreal Protocol on ozone depleting substances. Next, we have Stockholm Convention on persistent organic pollutants, that is POPs. Next, we have Rotterdam Convention on Prior Informed Consent (PIC) for certain hazardous chemical and pesticides in international trade. Lastly, we have Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. Now let's come to question number 96. Consider the following statements with respect to the Committee of Parliament on Official Language. Number 1. The Official Language Committee derives its authority from an Act of Parliament. Number 2. The Chairman of the Committee of Parliament on Official Language is nominated by the Speaker of Lok Sabha. Number 3. The committee is required to submit its report to the President on the progress made in the use of Hindi for the official purposes of the Union. Which of the statements given above are correct? So the correct answer is A. That is 1 and 3 only. So 1 and 3. They are correct. Article 351 of the Constitution speaks of the development of Hindi as the official language of the Union. In 1963, the Official Languages Act was enacted. It provided for the setting up of a committee on official language to review the progress made in the use of Hindi for the official purpose of the Union. Hence, statement 1 is correct. The committee consists of 30 members, of whom 20 shall be members of the House of the People and 10 shall be members of the Council of States, to be elected respectively by the members of the House of the People and the members of the Council of States in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of the single transferable vote. The chairman of the committee is elected by the members of the committee. As a convention, the Union Home Minister has been elected as chairman of the committee from time to time. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. So, statement 2 is not correct. It is the duty of the committee to review the progress made in the use of Hindi for the official purposes of the Union and submit a report to the President, making recommendations thereon, and the President shall cause the report to be laid before each House of Parliament and sent it to all the state governments. Hence, statement 3 is correct. So, statement 1 and 3 are correct. Now, let's come to question number 97. Aware Tool, AWARE-TOOL. So, Aware Tool, an initiative of World Health Organization, sometimes seen in news, is related to: Number A, spreading awareness with respect to health targets in Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Number B, the coordination between international health organizations in developing countries. Number C, safe and effective use of antibiotics. Number D, bringing transparency with respect to the spending of funds by WHO. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C, that is safe and effective use of antibiotics. The World Health Organization, that is WHO, has undertaken various initiatives to address antimicrobial resistance. Global Antimicrobial Resistance Surveillance System, that is GLASS, supports a standardized approach to the collection, analysis, and sharing of data related to antimicrobial resistance at a global level. Next, we have AWARE tool, that is AWARE so AWARE tool, aimed at guiding policymakers and health workers to use antibiotics safely and more effectively. It classifies antibiotics into three groups. Now, the first one we have access. Antibiotics used to treat the most common and various and serious infections. This is what we call as access. The first group is access. So antibiotics used to treat the most common and serious infections. Next is watch. Antibiotics available at all times in the healthcare system. And the third one is reserve. Antibiotics to be used sparingly or preserved and used only as a last resort. Hence, the correct option is C. Next, we have Global Antibiotic Research and Development Partnership, that is GARDP. It encourages research and development through public-private partnerships. Next, we have Interagency Coordination Group on Antimicrobial Resistance, IACG, established by United Nations Secretary General to improve coordination between international organizations and to ensure effective global action. Next, we have Global Action Plan. It aims to ensure prevention and treatment of infectious diseases with safe and effective medicines. Next, we have question number 98. Which of the following statements regarding the World Climate Research Program is or are correct? The first statement is it aims to determine the predictability of climate change. Number two, its secretariat is hosted by the World Meteorological Organization. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C. That is both 1 and 2. So both the statements are correct. So the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. The World Climate Research Program, WCRP, mission is to facilitate the analysis and prediction of Earth system variability and change for use in an increasing range of practical applications of direct relevance, benefit, and value to society. The two overarching objectives of the WCRP are: number one, to determine the predictability of climate. Hence, statement 1 is correct. And number 2, we have to determine the effect of human activities on climate. WCRP has three co-sponsors. Number 1, we have World Meteorological Organization. WMO is a specialized agency of the United Nations which is dedicated to international operation and coordination on the state and behavior of the Earth's atmosphere, its interaction with the land and oceans, the weather and climate it produces, and the resulting distribution of water resources. WMO also hosts the WCRP Secretariat. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Intergovernmental Oceanic Commission of UNESCO, IOC UNESCO. It is the United Nations Marine Science Organization. The purpose of the Commission is to promote international cooperation and to coordinate programs in research, services, and capacity building. In order to learn more about the nature and resources of the ocean and coastal areas and to apply that knowledge for the improvement of management, sustainable development, the protection of the marine environment, and the decision-making processes of its member states. Next, we have the International Science Council. ISC was created in 2018 as the result of a merger between the International Council of Science, that is ICSU, previously a sponsor of Wcrp, and the International Social Science Council, that is ISSC. It is the only international non-governmental organization bringing together the natural and social sciences and the largest global science organization of its type with a vision to advance science as a global public good. Now let's come to question number 99. With reference to Financial Action Task Force FATF, consider the following statements. Number 1, it is a global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog. Number 2, it is an intergovernmental organization established by G7 countries. Number 3, India is member of Financial Action Task Force. So for question 99, which of these statements given above is or are correct? The correct answer is D. That is 1, 2, and 3. So all the statements are correct. So statement 1, 2, and 3 are all correct. The FATF is the global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog. The intergovernmental body sets international standards that aim to prevent these illegal activities and the harm they cause to society. Hence, statement 1 is correct. It was established in July 1989 by a group of 7, that is G7 summit in Paris, initially to examine and develop measures to combat money laundering. Hence, statement 2 is correct. It currently comprises 37 member countries, including India, and 2 regional organizations, that is European Commission and Gulf Cooperation Council. Hence, statement 3 is correct. Role of FATF in combating terrorist financing. Setting global standards to combat terrorist financing. Evaluating countries' ability to prevent, detect, investigate, and prosecute the financing of terrorism. FATF issues 2 lists, namely, number 1 list, we have the blacklist, officially known as high-risk jurisdictions subject to a call for action. Number 1, it sets out the countries that are considered deficient in their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism and counter-financing of terrorism, AML or CFT, regulatory regimes. These blacklisted countries are subjected to economic sanctions and other prohibitive measures by FATF member states and other international organizations. The current FATF blacklist includes 2 countries, number 1, North Korea, and number 2, Iran. Okay, so the next list is grey list, officially referred to as jurisdictions under increased monitoring. Countries on the FATF grey list represent a much higher risk of money laundering and terrorism financing, but have formally committed to working with the FATF to develop action plans that will address their AML or CFT deficiencies. These countries are subjected to increased monitoring by the FATF. While grey list classification is not as negative as the black list, countries on the list may still face economic sanctions from institutions like the IMF and the World Bank and experience adverse effects on trade. Assisting jurisdictions in implementing financial provisions of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on terrorism. Now let's come to 100th question, that is, which of the following changes are introduced by the Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment Act 2019? Statement 1. Appointment of arbitrators by the Ministry of Commerce. Number 2. Providing time limit for the arbitration of domestic and international disputes. Number 3. Establishment of an independent body called the Arbitration Council of India. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is B. That is 3 only. So the correct answer is 3 only. With an aim to make India a commercial arbitration hub and reduce the intervention of courts, the government introduced amendments to the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. The Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment Act 2019 stems from the recommendations made by a high-level committee under the chairmanship of Justice B. N. Sri Krishna. Important changes brought about by the amendment. Establishment of ACI. It will establish an independent body, namely the Arbitration Council of India, that is ACI, that will frame policies, provide grading of arbitral institutions, and oversee the timely and cost-effective disposal of arbitration cases. The statutory body is to be chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court or the Chief Justice of a High Court or an eminent person having special knowledge and experience in the conduct of the arbitration. The Council will make grading of arbitral institutions on the basis of criteria relating to infrastructure, quality and caliber of arbitrators, performance and compliance of time limits for disposal arbitrations. Hence, statement 3 is correct. Now let's come to time frame. Section 29A of the Act, which requires completion of all the arbitral proceedings within 1 year of the arbitral tribunal being constituted. However, it excludes international commercial arbitration from the ambit of the section. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. The Amendment Act empowers the Supreme Court. So the Amendment Act empowers the Supreme Court in the case of international commercial arbitration and the High Court in cases other than international commercial arbitration to designate arbitral institutions for the purpose of appointment of arbitrators. It also provided for the qualifications and experience of arbitrators. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. The arbitrator, the arbitral institution, and the parties to the arbitration agreement must maintain the confidentiality of all arbitral proceedings. So the correct answer is 3. So that's all, guys. See you in my next video. Bye.